Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Internado. The Black Knight Nation podcast, as always, is brought to you by Higher Echelon, company run by Joe Ross, former Army fullback, former Army assistant coach, former Army officer, certainly a guest on the Black Knight Nation podcast. Check out our social medias. They're really on fire, crazy from yesterday's Army-Navy game. Check out our Instagram. Check out our YouTube. Check out our Facebook, which has 3,500 followers now, crazy. Check out Seth Mendelson's game story on BlackKnightNation.com. Check out Margaret Kite's photos of the Army-Navy game that are posted on social media. And I'm going to get you some quick thoughts, hopefully very soon, on the disappointing, guys, you can come up with so many descriptions of this game for Army and their feelings afterwards. Painful, agonizing, heartbreaking. We could just go down the line here. It was a rough 17-16. Army fell to Navy at M&T Bank Stadium. Seth Mendelson and I were there to cover the game, and we welcome Cuthbert Hutton from Sidelines Army, as always, to the podcast. And, today, Seth, we were welcomed with a snowstorm. I don't know about you, but I was welcomed with a snowstorm this morning. I'm shoveling snow, and, I'm trying to make sense of it, because it's the same stuff that you wrote about that's happening in these games, and they're just not finishing games. And I think Brendan in Jersey had a great stat with like 7 out of 9 games of these one-score games that they've been in. They lost the fourth quarter, and they pride themselves on being the fourth quarter warriors, but this year it hasn't gotten their way. So maybe I'll get sets. We got a bunch of comments waiting to go on. We'll get them going as soon as we get opening thoughts from Seth and Cuthbert. Seth, you start.
Okay, well, thank you. We were there for the game. It was an exciting game. Having the president there definitely made it more interesting, I felt. To sum it up for me, like you just said, Army stopped playing after the field goal to put them up 16-7 in the third quarter. Their last 3 drives, they had a total of negative yards, 1 yard. Of course, the interception on a pass he simply should not have thrown. He could have run for, I thought he could have run for some yardage, or at least throw the ball out of bounds, do something. It was a second down play. And of course, intercepted at the 50-yard line, led to the Navy winning score. I put this all on the offense. They had just 1 touchdown and 3 field goals. They had the ball in some good positions, and they weren't able to convert. As Monken said in the press conference yesterday, they have it's first and goal at the 8. And they had to settle for 3 points. And you can't do that against a team like Navy in an emotional game like this. I thought the defense played pretty well. I just thought the offense, and let Cuthbert go. But the one thing that kind of bugs me is Army only had 120 yards rushing in the game, and 100 of them came from Cale Helms. And that says to me that something is wrong, that your quarterback is accounting for 5/6 of your rushing yards. It means that somebody's not blocking, somebody's not doing anything. They don't have the faith in the guys. I don't know what it is. And I think, you got to change that for next year. We're already talking about next year, but to finish this year, that's what killed us. 3 drives, negative 1 yard, interception, a bizarre ending to a game that was very winnable, as was 4 or 5 other games this year.
Cuthbert?
Listen, I say it on Twitter all the time. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Welcome to 2025 Army football. Sal, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to reference Brendan in Jersey, friend of the pod. I was going to reference that tweet right off the bat, talking about some of the struggles that we've had in the fourth quarter. Now, look, if we play our game, that's how you end up with the Kansas States and the Temples, where we're eating the last, 9.5 minutes of the game, and we're beating Air Force on a last-second kick. Problem is that when that is if that's what you produce, it means that you're also potentially losing to Tarleton State or North Texas, or in this case, obviously hated rival Navy. Seth, you're 100% right. Our offense obviously runs through the quarterback. I mean, that is the system that we run. But what we have seen this year with Cale Helms it's too unbalanced, in my opinion. I have to think that that's probably because this is something of a rebuilding year. All the predictions preseason were going to be that we were going to be in the 6 to 8 wins, overall. That's effectively right where we are. I mean, if we can get a win in our bowl game, we'll be at 7. Everyone was expecting us to take a big step back this year. I very loudly said we were not going to take a step back. That's on me. But, it is what it is. I don't want to try and have rose-colored glasses. I'm just as upset and disappointed about yesterday as everyone else. But if I'm being totally frank, and I messaged this to you, Sal, when I sent you my prediction for the game, I think I said I thought Army was going to win. I believe it was 24-22. And then I read the article, and I actually messaged you, Sal, and said, my actual prediction is exactly what Seth was predicting, which I think was 31-10. I expected this to be 2024 2.0. And the fact that it wasn't, I think, is really incredible. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm also still very upset that we didn't win. I think we should have won. We could have and should have. But when you think about things like the way the ball is bouncing on fumbles and it's bouncing right back into Horvath's hands, or we have a potential 97-yard scoop and score, but instead Tesga is able to get his hand on it, and instead it just goes back to the 8. I mean, you can't control those things. If any of those things go differently, we probably win that game. But then that makes me think back to whatever year it was, 2023, where Caleb Fortner, I think it was, basically basketballed the ball out of the Navy quarterback's hands, caught it on the bounce, turned and ran 55 yards for a touchdown. And we stopped them on the 1-yard line at the end of the game. I mean, these are razor thin games year in, year out. And I'm very disappointed that we didn't win. And I'll tell you what, it was difficult to listen to Coach Monken's post-game press conference. You can tell just how much this affected him and how difficult this was. But you need to understand that we were coming into that game double-digit underdogs. We had no right to be
not
in that
double
game.
digit, not double
Were we
digit. Like
not?
6 or 7. About a touchdown, right, Seth?
All right. Maybe I overstated. But genuinely, I believe that game was going to be a give or take 30-10, 2024 repeat. So, it was what it was. We lost. This is the first time since the breaking of the streak that Navy has put together 2 in a row.
Correct.
Again, I'm not trying to just make lemonade out of lemons here, but big picture, we are taking a step back this year. Navy is having the 2020 in their 2025 is our 2024. Okay. They didn't play in the championship, so they were able to put it together this past week. They beat us. It sucks. We're going to come back next year. We're going to work hard. We're going to try and win. It doesn't feel good, but I'm not ready to fire the staff. I'm not ready to restart things. This is Army football, and in better years we win 6 out of 7 games. In worse years we win 3 out of 7 games, and that's what we're looking at this year.
I think you have to be. I don't know. You're very optimistic, Cuthbert. I think I'm always the dark cloud, but I think when I was thinking about the game, I look at it as Seth, and maybe we talked about this on the car ride home, and Coach Monken said in the press conference, in this game, you can't settle for field goals. And I'm thinking, okay, it's great that Dawson Jones might tie the Army-Navy record with his next field goal, his 4th field goal. But you look at the situations and the 2 times they settled for field goals. The one at the end of the half, great drive. And here's my thing. They've been pretty good in the 1-minute or 2-minute drives at the end of the halves, right? For the most of the year, they've done a pretty good job. Could you have thrown something a little bit different at Navy than having Samari Howard line up as a fullback during the game? Was your wrinkle for 2 weeks? Now, I asked for Samari Howard to get the ball more. I've said on this podcast for Samari Howard to get the ball more. Did I think they were going to put him lined up as a B-back? I didn't. Did it work? Not really. They didn't. The thing is, Seth, Noah Short and Cuthbert, 2 carries for Noah Short, I think, right? 2 carries, right. 2 rushes, 4 yards.
4 yards.
Could you have used Noah Short as a little bit of a decoy, maybe, and maybe ran a misdirection play to somebody else, anybody else? I don't care who you give the ball to. I don't care who you give the ball to. It was vanilla for most of the game. And, to say this is the way we play Army football, well, guess what? It hasn't worked this year. It's worked. You're 4-5 now, and it's worked, but it hasn't worked in winning situations. 4-5 in 9 games. I call you those 9 games, 29 points is the deciding factor in those games. That's 3 points a game. That's a field goal a game. And it's just like, sometimes enough's enough. And I think personally, and I'll stop talking and let everybody else talk and we'll get the comments. Here's what I'm thinking. That game should have been more than a 16-7 game, right? They should have got, we talked about, they should have got more points on the second drive. They didn't get. I don't know why. On the third down play, he threw I thought it was a bubble screen. It wasn't a bubble screen. It was a kind of a flare pass. I don't even know what you would call it to Noah Short. Navy read it pretty good, went nowhere, couldn't go for the touch, couldn't go for it on fourth down, had to kick a field goal. The killer is when Justin Weaver gets a pick 6, but his knee's on the ground, so you take the points back. You get the touchdown there. I essentially think probably Navy's done. Are they going to get 2 touchdowns to win the game? I don't think so. But
the other play like that.
He was down.
He was. I know he was.
And the other play like that, make my point. Go ahead. Was the lack of the pass interference call just before halftime. And I'm not blaming the refs for this game. I think by and large, the game was pretty well refereed, as well as it can be. The lack of pass interference in the end zone, that is truly an unforgivable mistake by the referees not to throw the flag on that play.
Real quick, I'll get to that in a second. But the Justin Weaver drive, you get the ball on the 33 maybe? I don't even know.
Around there, yeah.
Yeah, you ran, I think, 2 plays that should have been option pitches, and Cale Helms ate the ball. He ate the ball on first down. He ate the ball on third down. He had some space to pitch to Noah Short on first down. He had some space to pitch to Samari Howard on third down. There was room there. So we sometimes say, well, Cody Worley's not called a great game, right? Well, what's Cody Worley doing? Those were pretty well called plays that weren't executed well. And then you have to settle for 3 instead of 7. And on the pass interference penalty, yes, it was pass interference, 100%. But you get 15 yards. You have 8 seconds left. Is that going to give you a touch? It gives you an opportunity to throw into the end zone. One opportunity instead of run the football, right?
That's true.
Are they guaranteed a touchdown after that pass interference penalty? It's not the NFL when they put it on the 1 yard line.
That's right.
If it was, then we could say, okay, damn it, that, still, Cuthbert, I agree with you. It's a missed call. It would give Army at least a chance to throw the ball into the end zone or something. You know what? Real quick, this is my last rant. Where was, we saw tight end play in the last couple games. Could you look at a tight end against Navy? Could you throw the ball in any direction of a tight end today? Parker Poloski he was a blocker. He was 100% blocker today. I think that sometimes these guys, what I was getting at is that they should be more ahead in games, right? So the players try to compensate for that and try to make plays that aren't there and try to do more than they should be doing, aka the interception. You don't really need to throw that ball. You're doing too much. You're up by 6. Second time in 3 games we've seen this. They're out there end of the field. You call a pass play on second down. Now Seth Cuthbert, should he have thrown it right away to Brady Anderson? Probably. Yeah. Should he have ran it? Yes. Well, guess what? He picked C, and C was the wrong move. And then you look at the fumble at the end zone. Now, credit the Navy player for getting the ball, but you have to dive on that football. You cannot think scoop and score from the 3 yard line and 97 yards down. You have to dive on that football and get possession of that ball. You cannot.
Honestly, the one play that's replaying in my head over and over again is that play. And I'm thinking to myself, not if he dives on the ball, but what if instead of trying to scoop and score, he decides to just boot it.
Hmm.
He decides to just boot the ball and kick it 10 or 12 yards. It'll be bouncing in crazy ways. There'll be a whole pack of people running back. And instead of being 4th and goal from the 8, if Navy recovers, it'll be 4th and goal from the 14 or the 25, or maybe we recover it at the 25 or something like that. But I understand
Does any
it's a
college
bang
football,
play.
does any college football kid actually sit there and say, I'm going to boot it? They're going to try to make the play.
Of course they are. Of course.
I want to go back to something, Sal, you were talking about the 9
Please do.
games. You didn't
Please do.
identify the 9 games were the 9 games that Army either won or lost by a touchdown or less. You didn't say that. So we had 9 games this year. We won 4 and lost 5 by either 7 points or less. And the fact that we only won 4 of those 9 games says there's something. We just seem to stop in the third and definitely the fourth quarter of many of our games, and crucial times, the right plays. You can go back to North Texas, you can go back to Tarleton even. The crucial the plays weren't being made, and that's what happened again here. It just seemed. What was the difference of the game? The talent was pretty good. Navy had some good players, but our guys played pretty tough. The difference was that Navy kept doing different things all the time. Didn't work a lot. First half didn't work, but in the second half it did. Worked enough to win the game. That's all that matters.
They got they got those big hits, Seth. They got when Horvath needed a big run, he got it, right?
Yeah.
When Teska needed a big run, he gave them a big run, I think, on that touchdown drive.
He did.
And Cuthbert, we talk all season. Where are the big plays on offense in the running game? They're not really there. I don't know what the longest run was by Helms, but it might have been 1 over 20 yards, maybe.
26 yards rushing, his longest run.
That's about it.
And you had mentioned a few minutes ago the disappointment in the lack of production from the tight ends. I mean, we have, I don't even know what you call it, like a counter boot rollout. I believe it's the same play that we scored the touchdown just before halftime against Kansas State. And then we used it again as well for a 2-point conversion against Tulsa. And there were a couple of times yesterday where we were looking at 3rd and short or 4th and short, and it wasn't necessarily a short field, but I was thinking to myself, I understand that this is a play that's designed to be run inside the 5-yard line. This might be a good time to run it. We only need to get 3 yards. And if we catch them in the wrong, defense, it might bust loose for 35 or 40 yards. I think we absolutely could have been more creative in our play calling. That was very sort of difficult to watch in the fourth quarter, especially. But I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse here, and I know that I'm probably on a little bit of an island on this on my own. But, when we are beating Temple by 1 point and we get the ball back and we sit on it for 9 minutes, that is what I love to see. That is what Monken wants to do. That is what we are hoping to do. And if you want to dance with the girl that brung you, and that's the strategy you're going to use, then you know what? In years that you are a really strong team and you're better than average, it's going to be like 2024, and we're going to be great. And on years where maybe we're at only average or maybe a little below average, we're going to go 4 and 5 in 1-score games. It just is what it is. I'm not happy about it, but welcome to Army football. I don't know what to say.
Army football can evolve, Cuthbert. It doesn't have to be that way. It
really has to be that way.
It has to
be that way.
I don't think it does, man.
If it doesn't evolve, we're in trouble.
God, you can't and I've seen comments, and we're going to get to all these, and we might even going to dissect a couple. There's a lot put on Cale Helms in this offense. He has to do so much. And can you take something off his shoulders? Anything off his shoulders?
Totally agree.
I don't know. If you want to run Wildcat and look at Navy, they brought in their second string quarterback. If you want to bring Dwayne Coleman, put him in the shotgun, line Cale Helms at wide, and just to do something, let Dwayne Coleman take a Wildcat snap and run. Something different, anything creative, anything different. Instead, bang Cale Helms' head against the wall for 25 times. And it's just like, well, that's how we win. Well, that's how we Well, it wasn't enough. It was not enough. And
Kale Helms is not Bryson Daly, and that's what we talked about in the car ride. We got a 4-hour car ride home trying to beat the snow, and we talked about that, Sal and I. This kid plays. He's a tough kid.
man, he's tough.
Him. Yeah. And okay, but he's not Bryson Daly, at least this year. Maybe next year he'll put on some weight, and maybe he will be. Bryson Daly emerged his senior year. But you got to do different stuff. I'm looking at Noah Short got 5 targets. Anderson had 4. Pulaski had 1. They caught 5 passes altogether. I mean, you got to do different things, to your point. You got to try something. Navy's doing it. Navy tried. They did it last year a lot more than they did it this year. I was kind of surprised. But we got to try something. We seem to go conservative when we got nothing to lose here. We had nothing to lose in this game. We were underdogs and nobody's expecting us to win. Try different things. What the hell? At least you tried, right? Kale Helms played a great game. Kid's a tough kid. Very impressed with what he did this year, and including yesterday. He made one mistake. That's the way that's what happens. But come on, I put this on the coaches all the way.
Well, this is what, and I'm not close enough to the team to know this. Perhaps one of y'all might know this, maybe not. I think the 2025 Army team is hanging on by a thread. And when I say that, what I mean is we have gone 4-5 in 1-score games. But if not for this type of play calling, if not for putting Kale Helms in over Dwayne Coleman, if not playing this uber conservative sort of arch Army offense, we wouldn't have gone 4-5 in those 1-score games. We would have gone 2-7. And I don't know if that's for sure. I don't know if it's a deficiency this year. I mean, at least relative to last year, let's say. Maybe deficiency is too strong a word. But I don't know if it's an issue with the offensive line or if it's an issue with the running back room. But something is going on where we are only able to get production out of whoever happens to be quarterback. And maybe that's because when you're running QB read, it means they're making an on-the-spot decision as to the best lane to take, and that's ensuring that they get the 3 to 4 yards, as opposed to you call a play to a running back to a set hole, and they hit that hole, whether it's the right spot to go or the wrong spot to go. And as a result, we're only getting 1.5 yards on a running back, on a called run to a running back. So I don't know where the issue is, but something about the makeup of the team this year is requiring that all this offense run through Helms. And as we were talking about earlier, Helms is not Bryson Daly. And I don't just say that from, let's say, a physicality standpoint, because Bryce Helms is tough as hell. And, I call him Hellboy for a reason. But in terms of his understanding of the offense and when to pitch and how to find gaps, that Bryson did so well last year. And fingers crossed, knock on wood, he's going to have that next year with an extra year of experience. But I really do think that Army this year was hanging on by, at least our offense, I should say, was hanging on a bit by a thread because it was just cobbled together best we could do.
What do we average? How many points per game do we average this year?
I don't know. Probably like low 20, like 20 points a game.
I think we were.
Go ahead, Cuthbert.
I think we were at like 22 or 23 going into that game, so we're probably close to 20 now.
Yeah. So here's Dan Polis. Thanks, Dan, for the comment. They don't have a dominant B back, and I want to also get to a comment here. Let me see if I can find it again. From just here at NY Sports. This is not an option offense, and so if you're going to run the true option offense and you're going to use the fullback and you're going to use the slot backs, if you're not going to do that, then you got to go to something. I'm not saying you have to go to something else, but you got to figure out something, because like you said, Cuthbert, there's something going on where the poor quarterback has to carry 80% of the time plus. Then he has to drop back to pass after he's, taken how many hits a game. He's got to drop back to pass and make some pretty critical plays in the passing game. It's just like, oh man, I don't care. I'm pretty much done venting, but it's just like, you need to figure out, are you running an option offense or not? Are you getting the ball to the B backs and the slot backs or not? And I don't care what you see, what kind of scheme the team plays. When every opponent might be in a different front, they might switch it up, but you got to figure it out. And if you don't have a guy who's quarterback who's afraid to pitch the ball or doesn't want to pitch the ball, doesn't want to keep it, then why are you running option offense? Why are you doing it? Then just bring in an extra tight end and play a wing back or something like that and smash mouth with Carson Smith or Jake Rendina to help Kale out. I don't know.
Teams are going to get used to. Teams are going to get used to, already are used to the fact that Army has, Helms running for 25 carries this week. I mean, everybody knows what he's going to do. Navy knew it. They got used to it. We had one drive to tie the score up 7-7. And the rest of that, we got the ball in short yardage situations, the interception, the fumble, and we're settling for field goals. Try something. And maybe somebody wrote on this, maybe the talent isn't there. Maybe that's it. Maybe the coaches think there's not enough talent to do what needs to be done. I don't know the answer to it. They talk about how these kids try the hardest, and they do. They look tired yesterday. They played a tough game. They deserve to win the game, but so did Navy, and Navy did. So, I mean, I don't know what happened this year. I don't know why it happened so much in the later part of the games like it did yesterday. But it happens. It's sad. And we got one more game to play, and we got a lot of our offensive team back next year. Right?
Yeah, we'll talk about what next season holds in the bowl game in a little bit. But we thank Noah Short for watching tonight and saying, win or lose, you guys always put in the effort to give a recap. Appreciate you guys beat UConn. We appreciate you, Noah. I mean, I know it didn't go your way on yesterday, but Noah Short was at the press conference, right, Seth? When I asked him about how difficult this game was for being a senior and not being able to go out with a win over Navy, he gave a really good answer, and we really appreciated Noah Short. And the anytime like if I'm at a preseason practice or if I'm at a spring practice, he's a go-to guy. He's a go-to guy, a guy that you want to talk to, a guy you want to get insight from. So one more game for Noah and the seniors, and we'll get to that game. And we just, hopefully they can get that game and have go out with a winning season. Cuthbert, you got anything else on the offensive side before maybe we get to some comments?
Just that, I can only hope that 2026 is going to, provide a better offense than 2025. I mean, there's something going on there. And I think that people can rightfully be critical of play calling. But I think there are deeper issues that the coaching staff has identified. And I'm not saying it's like, tumult or turmoil or something, but just, they're looking at the players, and I trust their ability. I was surprised that Hayden Reed didn't see any touches yesterday. You know what I mean? It's like, but you know what? The coaching staff, I trust that they know what they're doing because they're the ones who are at practice every day. They're the ones who understand what kind of game plan they want to put together. I have not lost faith in this coaching staff, and I haven't lost faith in this team. It is what it is. It was a horribly disappointing game against a hated, bitter rival who is looking at 2 straight 10-win seasons. That's a really, really good football team. And we worked our ass off yesterday and we lost.
I wanted to add one more thing at the press conference. We were talking about Noah before. Cale Helms was asked a couple of hard questions, and I got to give this. He's done it all season. When Army loses, he takes it on his shoulders. He took the blame for a couple of mistakes, and he does it all the time. And not everybody does that. I was really impressed with that. This is a 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid. I'm not sure how old he is. Okay, and he's mature, and he handled it really well in the press conference all year long, as all his teammates do, by the way. But he does it the most. He gets asked the most questions as the quarterback. So I want to make sure everybody knows that this kid really stood up and said, "Hey, it was my bad there, and I need to do better, and I didn't do better." And sometimes he did do better. Kansas State, let's be honest. He carried the team. So he should get credit for that. But people should know that.
Kent M saying that on X Navy fans are bitter because Coach Monken doesn't say Navy in the post game and said his comment 2 years ago. Are they still playing football there? It still fuels them. If that fuels them up, I know Blake Horvath in the press conference post game said that he felt a little disrespected, maybe from last year's game. And you know what? It's that I was on the field for most of the game yesterday. And it goes both ways with, words being said in between plays. It goes both ways. Like, yes, our Army players, like, Coach Monken and even I think Anna Thomas said it, it's a rivalry game. Things are said, there's pushing after the whistle. There's some stuff going on. And, there was one play where Kel Helms ran. I think it was the first or second drive. And he dove forward. He landed on the ground. He was down. Navy guy came in late, hit him, no flag. So, I mean, things are just, it's a rivalry game, and do I think there's disrespect there? I didn't see any of it in the post game. I wasn't near the main. Supposedly there was another scrum, possibly a skirmish. I was a little away from that when I was on the field post game, but I think in the end there's, I think in the end, we haven't said this. Navy was lucky to win this game. They didn't play their best. The ball didn't bounce Army's way in the second half on those two plays that we talked about. The interception was key. And that fourth down play, let's talk about it right now. 4th and 8, Navy decides to go for it. It's kind of a gutsy call from Navy because if they don't get it, it's 16. It's 16-10 Army. I think there's 6 minutes left in the game. If Army runs out the clock, who knows if they can get a first down? I don't know. And the thing with that play is I watched that play over one time. Just need to watch it one time. And Coach Monken said they blitzed on the play, right? They did send 5 guys to pressure Horvath. And they had Casey Larkin in one-on-one coverage with Eli Heidenreich. And Horvath threw the pretty good ball. But I see the 2 inside linebackers kind of sitting about 2 yard on the 2 yard line. I don't know. They need to score a touchdown. They need to score a touchdown. Why aren't you potentially dropping back into the end zone for any of the middle throws? It's probably a cover. It's probably a defensive call. I have no idea. But it's just like the fact that Navy completed that pass and then completed a 3rd and 16 pass too. You got to make plays. You got to make plays in this game. If you don't make plays in this game, you're not going to win. Defense played a great game. If they had made a couple more plays, Army would have been singing second. That's how I look at it.
I thought if the offense would have made some more plays, Army would be singing second. But okay.
Well, and on that final touchdown on the 4th and goal, I don't think it was necessarily. I mean, hindsight 2020, of course, you want to double up on, the best receiver Navy's potentially had, ever. That being said, I think Woody's concern was if we drop everyone into coverage, then Horvath is just going to dance around for, 10 seconds and then scamper into the end zone. Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't, that's my gut feeling. And so I think his thought was we get pressure on him. We force them to make a play. And if they can make it, well, then good enough. We put them in a spot where they had to make a play and they made it. And that's exactly what happened. Now that 3rd and 16 was honestly almost a more difficult pill to swallow than that touchdown, which sounds crazy, but that touchdown was a bang, bang play. And, he was well covered. Just the ball was in the right spot. There's only one defender. What are you going to do?
Yeah, good point, Cuthbert. I agree with you. Big Daddy, after how we played in the second half on offense, we didn't deserve to win that game. Time to regroup and beat UConn. At least finish the season above 500. Appreciate that. Let's scroll down to some other new comments here. See what we got. Walter says, I believe the talent is there. They showed it at times this year. Something flips when they get to the second half. Good point. James Sartell, thanks for joining us, James. Red zone offense, a problem all year. Yeah, I mean, Has been.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's a big thing. Against North Texas, we had them beat. What was it, first or second down and on the 2 or the 3 yard line, and they had a penalty, a 5 yard illegal procedure penalty. That game should not have gone to overtime. That's the difference between this year's team and last year's team. Last year's team was converting all those red zone opportunities in many cases for touchdowns. We were not. This year, it didn't happen.
No doubt. William D. Los Santos says Evolve. Drew Cronick seems to be running offense. Army wanted 2 years ago. Priest get creative. Borrow some schemes from FCS D2 or D3. Here we go. Someone should ask Matt Monken about the state of the offense. Did we do that? Set them press conferences? I don't know.
Well, sometimes we talk about it, and he defends his team.
Yeah, I mean, what is he going to say? Let's see. Horvath is graduating, says user SB. I won't read the rest of his name. Mike A checking in, saying Navy was better, more experienced team coming into this year, and that's how the game is played out, beating us by 1. I mean, there's just too much of this stuff. It's just too many close calls, too many ball bounces, too many. I don't know. It just doesn't. When it doesn't work out so often. Here's what I think, guys. When you have those 9 games with a score or less, you're playing hard, but there's things that you're not doing right, and there's reasons why those games are so close. And you can say it's our style to grind out games and eat up clock and this and that and keep the other opponent's offense off, keep them on the sidelines. But there's something there that just hasn't clicked this year. And now you got one bowl game. You got a bowl game left. And, this would have been a really good season if they could have pulled out this game this year, brought the Commander-in-Chief's trophy to West Point and had a bowl game. Win or lose the bowl game. Win or lose the bowl game. If you beat Navy and you bring the CIC trophy home, it's a pretty darn good year. And now we're talking about one score games, 1 point games. Seth, did you say something? All right, read it on social media where they've lost 2 overtime games and they lost 2 1-point games.
Yes.
I mean, the difference is so razor thin and I want to get to this real quick. I saw Navy post this. So in the last 8 years, since I believe Brian Newberry's come to Navy, my fault. Army's offense has scored 1 touchdown in the last eight Army Navy games. So, I mean, it's something to do with Coach Newberry and his scheme and the defensive coordinator now, the current defensive coordinator for Navy. But, man, at some point, something's got to give, guys, in these games on offense. Something's got to give. And I thought after the first drive, okay, Army's come to play on offense. And what's that? Maybe they had 100 yards plus after the first drive or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know if they did. It's 75 yards on the first drive and,
200 for the game. Yeah.
Okay, so 100 yards. There definitely seems to be some kind of issue when it comes to the Navy game. They seem to get conservative. They seem to not do the things that we are hoping for. We saw it last year, and we saw Navy, open up the book. And then this year, I mean, we talked about it in the car. Sometimes is it better to lose the game by 30 points or 1 point? We debated that, and we lost by 1 point. Boy, does this hurt. Because you're right, winning the Commander-in-Chief trophy is goal number 1 at West Point. Goal number 2 is get to a bowl game, and goal number 3 is to win the American Conference. We got to a bowl game. Boy, it would have been great to win the Commander-in-Chief trophy. That would have summed it up. That would have been a good year. Everybody would have been happy in that press conference instead of seeing guys just you felt so bad for them. You felt so bad for them because they do. They try, and the coaches try their hardest too. Monken looked so tired. It looked like he lost everything in that game, and I know how much he wants to win. And I don't know whether he listens to us or not, but and his coaches too. I admire how much they care. I just don't get why they give the ball to the quarterback 25 times.
Well, and what you see is the exact opposite of what we saw following the Air Force game, which was another razor thin, Dawson Jones hitting a field goal as time expired to get the win. And what do you see out of Coach Monken? You see elation. You see relief. You see, honestly, euphoria. And the flip side of that is you put in all the same work, the effort, the passion into a game like this, and instead of getting that field goal as time expires, you end up losing by 1. And, I mean, it was the first thing I said when we started the show, but I'll say it again. That is a difficult listen to or watch Coach Monken's postgame. You can tell how much this affected him, let alone the players. So, the passion's there, and, we'll see if we can get it back next year.
Noah Short's dad checking in, saying in between flights, want to say thank you, Seth, Sal, and all for your time and enthusiasm on this podcast. We really appreciate you listening. And like we said before, we have nothing but great things to say about Noah, as a person and a player. Real quick, I want to get the defense a couple shout outs. Jack Balsam played an amazing game. If Army won this game, I was thinking about this today. If Army won the game, who would you give the MVP to? My vote would be Jack Balsam. My vote would be Jack Balsam in the game. He played an amazing game. He had 4 tackles, a sack and a half. He recovered the fumble that Caleb Fortner caused. Caleb Fortner played an excellent game too. Caleb Fortner was hitting hard from the first whistle. Being on the field, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hard hits. You could just count on probably a second hand how many times he really drilled a Navy player. And Andon Thomas played well. I thought the defensive line played very well against Blake Horvath. They contained him for most of the game. For I believe 80% of the game, he was contained. He was flustered. He was throwing some of the passes he were throwing were not on the ball. When he needs to make a play, he made a play. Kudos to Blake Horvath. But I didn't want to really get into this conversation, but when you're touting, I shouldn't. I was going to mention Heisman and Horvath in the same sentence, and I better not.
Don't go there.
I better not go there. But I mean, a Heisman finalist. Blake Horvath is a great quarterback. He's beaten Army 2 years straight. Last year they blew him out. This year he struggled a bit, but found a way to win the game. And I guess congratulations to him.
I want to give a shout out to Dawson Jones. 3 field goals, one from 48 yards, one from 45 yards. You got to say the kid did what he was supposed to do. He's a sophomore. Looking forward to 2 more years with him, and he's maturing. He started a tough start to the season, and yesterday he did what he was told to do and what he had to do, and kudos to him.
48-yarder, right, career high. And from my research, this is Black Knight Nation research. 15 field goals on the season are the most by an Army kicker since that 2010 Armed Forces team and Alex Carlton. That's my stat. And so that's, and who knows? There's still there's still a game to come. I'm sure Army would rather score touchdowns against UConn, but we know how sometimes touchdowns are hard to come by. So, bounce back from Dawson Jones from game 1 to where he is now, from game 1 to game 12. He's really showed that he is certainly Army's kicker, present and future. And right, Seth, 2 more years of him. They have a good one. Let's see.
Somebody asked, when was the last time we scored more than 1 touchdown against Navy? I'm going to look it up right now.
It's probably with Ahmad Bradshaw and Darnell Woolfolk. So you're probably looking at 2016 or 17. It might be the streak breaker game. It could be the streak breaker game in 2016. Brian Keogh saying, how about Jack Pummel and Chatham then sack? I mean, Cuthbert, that play where he blows up the slot back trying to block for Horvath and then sacks Horvath, that's an NFL play right there.
There were a couple. My wife and daughter ended up leaving in the second half because there were a couple of plays like that where I was just. I try not to be a yell at the TV kind of fan, whether it's positive or negative. But obviously, Army Navy, I can't help myself. And as the second half was going on, they were like, "We just got to get out of here. We're gonna go. Just get out of here for a little while," because I was. Plays like that, they're just electric.
Yeah, and when Army hasn't had a defensive lineman like that, and when he made the sack and when he came out and celebrated, I'm like, that looks like an NFL defensive lineman to me. Just
Oh
his
yeah.
size I mean, and I think they got 2 more years of Jack. I'm pretty sure they said 2 more years he's got or no.
4 years, yes.
I mean, I mean, for all of the flaws and all of the problems that we have identified and discussed with the offense and the execution and the game plan and all of it, I would say it's the reverse side of the coin for the defense. I was very, very happy with the defense yesterday. That is a serious offense from Navy, holding them, flustering Horvath the way we were able to. Ultimately they still scored more than we did. But I put that far more on the offense than the defense. I thought the defense played exceptionally well. And I will tell you candidly, well, I guess it's not that candid. We're on a podcast, but I was expecting Navy to do some real damage to our defense. And I was expecting them to put up 25 to 30 points, with relative ease. So I cannot speak more highly of Nate Woody, what he was able to do with that defense and the performances of our defenders.
Yeah, when you hold that offense to 17 points, which was their second lowest of the season, Notre Dame held them to 10, but Horvath didn't play in that game, right? And North Texas held Navy to 17. So when you equal the second lowest, the lowest point total Blake Horvath playing for Navy, you've done a good job, and you should win the game. Quite frankly, you should win that game. And it's just like, man, I don't know. I mean, this is something that, maybe it's a good thing that there's a couple weeks for Army before they have to play the bowl game, right? Maybe this week I believe it's probably exam time, for them, and focus on things that are not football maybe for a little bit, and then get at it next week in the bowl game. Here comes Iron Wolves. Uh-oh. He's saying, I hope Balsam doesn't transfer out. A lot of teams are going to be interested in him. An Annapolis guy who could have went to Navy. He could have stayed home, right, Seth? He chose Army and was hurt last year. Seth wrote a great story on him. If you check our Black Knight Nation website, you can read all about Jack Balsam. And I think that, I would hope Jack stays. And
I got the sense from my interview with him that he's definitely going to stick around. You never know when somebody starts throwing money around, but I got the feeling that his kid wants to be at West Point. He's happy with the coaching staff. He chose us, as Sal said, he chose us over the hometown favorite, and stuck out. He was injured last year, didn't play. Skipped. Actually left school for a semester. So he has 2 more years left of eligibility, and I'm expecting, I'm hoping for big things from him, because I think he's going to really emerge as a major player for us for the next 2 seasons.
And when he was third team American Conference, maybe some people that don't know the Army team well would say, who is this guy? And then he plays the game of his life against his hometown team. And man, left it all out on the field. I thought Army, talk about the defense a little bit more. They rotated the defensive line. They were keeping their defensive line fresh. I thought that's what was working. You had Cody Harris-Miller at nose tackle. Jacob Tuioti was subbing in for him before Jacob got hurt. Hope Jacob is okay. He's the senior who's played a big role on this team this year with Cody Harris-Miller missing games. And also Dylan Stowers at the beginning of the game. Dylan Stowers was making some tackles on the defensive line. I think he had 3 tackles in the first half, or was involved in 3 plays. And so the defensive line, Woody did a good job shuffling those guys, and Coach Alan Smith too. The good guys are getting the guys ready to play, first of all, in this game, right? And the guys doing a pretty good job of containing the Navy run game for most of the time. William D. Los Santos, big thanks to you guys, and to Joe Ross and Paul Maggiano at Higher Echelon for this podcast. Always great stuff. Appreciate you there. Here we go. Mike checking in. If we done something new and it didn't pan out, the complaints would be, didn't we stick to what we do well? I guess hindsight, maybe, who knows? But I mean, this has been all year long. This has been our conversation for most of the year, that the offense seems to be, they need to find something in it. They need to find big plays, and they just don't have them in them, especially in the run game. They're just not there this year. Anything else on the game? Anything else, Seth, other than the fact I had a chance to take a picture with Miss America after the game and I declined?
He turned it down. He turned down Miss America.
No, she didn't ask, but our photographer, Margaret Kite, asked me if I wanted a picture with Miss America. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll pass. I'm good. All is good.
What would Mrs. Interdonato say?
Yeah, that's the question. I don't know. Who knows? I would tell her she would see it on social media, I guess, somewhere. It'll be posted on TMZ, maybe. I don't know. Real quick, I was in the end zone, the Army side end zone for most of the second half, and I was standing next to Tim Perinetti, the American Conference Commissioner. And I never really introduced myself and said, hey, Sal here from Black Knight Nation, but just two guys watching a football game. And I think there was a play where that Blake Horvath went down near the one. They checked it to see if he scored or not. He didn't. And we were like, it was obvious that he was down. Obviously, he didn't make the goal line. And we were saying that, don't need the replay for it. But Perinetti was having a conversation with somebody behind me. In the end, I see a guy walk away. I'm like, this guy looks familiar. And it was Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was at the game. I think he appeared on the CBS Sports pregame. This game brings out a lot of we see Mark Wahlberg a lot at the games, right? Seth, we've seen him a couple times. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Taylor Sheridan. He writes the he writes and produces the Yellowstone series and the spinoffs of those. He was at the game, of course, Donald Trump. I was surprised how Donald Trump just walked out from where a tunnel from under the stadium, and here he was for the coin flip, and pretty cool. Pretty cool. This game is like no other, and we have to say that these two teams gave the fans that were there for both sides and the people watching their money's worth. A 17-16 game, a nail biter that goes down to the fourth quarter, drama everywhere. That one play where, God, how did that ball bounce right? Horvath fumbles and he grabs it in midair and then goes to the ground and fumbles, but doesn't fumble before he goes to the ground. And, how does that stuff happen? You only get that sometimes at these Army-Navy games. So I don't know. Seth, you could talk about the experience covering these games, right?
I sat next to a guy yesterday a young guy, first time at Army-Navy, and worked for another media site. And we talked quite a bit. And at the end middle of the game, he goes, this is one of the best experiences I've ever had in watching a college football game. And he told me he went to a lot of games. And it is, I've been to probably 30 Army-Navy football games in my life, and it never gets old. I love the fact that they go from city to city because it makes it a little different. And it's just a spectacular experience. And, having the sitting president there, whether you agree with them or not, some do, some don't, it makes it even that much better. Also, it's a little scary with all these Secret Service guys running around. But there are a lot of them there. And it just made for another great experience. I wish we would have won it. Looking forward to next year already at the Meadowlands, at MetLife Stadium. So it's, I love it. I love Army football, but I love the Army-Navy game.
Hey,
go
ahead, Cuthbert.
I was just going to say, I think this game is, I can't speak historically, obviously, but given the sort of media culture of the day and how widespread and available things like this are, I would have to think that we are probably approaching the zenith of popularity of the Army-Navy game. Now, I know that sounds crazy relative to what this game meant in the 50s and the 60s, but in the 50s and the 60s, we didn't have, 10, 12 million people watching on television each year. You know what I mean? So merely just the technological advances and the availability and the scheduling, you're comparing apples to oranges. But I think right now what's going on is there's really a renaissance of sorts in terms of interest in G5 football. And I think there's a lot of things that you can attribute that to. But things like the college football playoff and Tulane and JMU both making it, and then people getting on ESPN and talking about how terrible the Group of Five is, and then of course everyone who loves the Group of Five now they have a rallying call. Combined with that, the fact that Army and Navy have both been very good teams as of late. Army since 2016 really has been a very strong team, obviously with last year. And then, even before Brian Newberry, Navy's been a strong team since the early mid 2000s. So, these are really good football teams, and the pomp and the circumstance and the tradition. And to y'all's point, the atmosphere. I have not been to an Army Navy game. 2003 was the last Army and Navy game I went to in person. And, it was, I think it is really cementing itself. It's having a moment right now in American football culture, which is really, really fantastic.
People, call it a bucket list item. And I think if you're, you love football, you love this country, get to an Army Navy game. Get to an Army Navy game. Let's hope that the Black Knights get the bowl game win. Because as far as success, yes, but if you look at, here we go, Dark Cloud again, 6-6, 6-6, 12-2, hopefully 7-6, not 6-7, and the 6-7 thing, we don't want to go there. Hopefully it's not 6-7. That's not what we want to. That's not what we want to see. Let's go to close second was Coast Guard Merchant Marine at Fenway. First time played at neutral site. 10,000 rabid grads and fans getting their first taste of what Army Navy grads get every year. Very special. Also 1 point.
That's a big game. Division III, Coast Guard and Merchant Marine Academy. They really go at each other. They're pretty balanced teams. I follow that a little bit, and it's always I know that Fenway, the game at Fenway was pretty intense.
And here we go. We're going to get to Andrew's comment and read it. Navy committed several self-inflicted mistakes that they admitted. Army did not have the talent to truly capitalize on those mistakes. Conversely, Navy was talented enough to overcome them. There we go. Let's talk a little bit of let's talk the bowl first. Couple weeks, December 27th, Fenway Park. I want to go, Seth. So I want to go see a football game at Fenway Park, and William De Los Santos says it's a good place to see a game. So what do we think? UConn's 9-3, and we can maybe get out here next weekend and talk a little bit more about it if we want to. But like I said, it would be nice for Army to finish this year with this team, with this senior class. Now, how hard they played to get to 7-6.
Bowl games are featured teams that want to be there and teams that are only there because their coaches tell them to show up. UConn, I believe, is a team that wants to be there. They have no conference. Nobody lets them in. They'd love to be in the ACC. They're kind of banned from that, it appears, because some other teams don't want them in. And they apparently, I think, want to be in the American, and I'm not sure why that hasn't happened yet, because I think they'd be a great addition. They lost their coach to Colorado State, of all places, so I don't think he's coaching, right? He's not coaching?
No, he's not.
But this is a team that wants to prove itself. They're 9-3. They lost two games in overtime, one to my alma mater, Syracuse, and then also to Rice from our league, and then they lost to Delaware. They beat Duke. They beat Duke by 7, I believe, by 3, and they beat BC pretty handily. They're a good team. They score a lot of points. They got a good offense, a decent defense, and most important, as I just said, they want to win. They want to show the world that not 10-3 sounds great for a team that nobody pays any attention to, and try to get some respect out there. So unlike some other years where you get teams losing a lot of kids to the portal and stuff, these kids are there, and they lost their coach, but they still have the players. It's going to be a tough game.
What do you think, Cuthbert?
I'm gonna listen. I have nothing to base this off of. This is totally off the cuff. But I'm gonna completely disagree with you, Seth. They've lost their coach. I think they're gonna lose some players to the portal. I think they're staring down the barrel of a hard-nosed Army team who runs the ball a lot. It's gonna be played in Boston. It's gonna be cold. I understand that they're from Connecticut, so that's maybe not, but they're not gonna be interested in lining up against Army, and I think we are gonna win this game. That's just my take.
Okay.
Interesting. Now, I don't know, guys. You want to talk about what the future might hold real quick? For next year, we can always do. We're going to be doing a podcast down the road anyway. We're going to do kind of a season wrap podcast, and we'll talk about what the future holds. But I know there's a couple people that are listening right now and watching want to talk about what the future holds. And you know what? I think that I don't know if I got to this point earlier. But with the whole offense and where you're going with it, and if you're going to run option or not, and what you're going to do, how you're going to make this offense a little bit more dynamic, we got to remember that Ethan Washington missed the season this year, and he had an ACL injury in the first scrimmage, and hopefully he's going to be. I haven't heard how his rehab is going, but hopefully you won't see Ethan Washington in the spring, but hopefully you see him early in preseason. So there's some nice competition between him and Cale Helms, and they could push each other. And maybe Ethan can bring something that maybe is not there right now, or maybe he could provide a spark. Who knows? But I think that we got to remember there is another quarterback on this roster that has the potential to be. Coaches think probably might have been the opening day starter, or was definitely competing with Dwayne Coleman to be the opening day starter this year. A guy who can run the ball, a guy who can throw the ball a little bit. So we'll see. But I just want, if I was going to say anything about 2026 in the offense, and not having Briggs Bartosh, I was told Briggs Bartosh is out for the season. He's not going to play in the bowl game. But having Briggs Bartosh as a dynamic fullback will certainly help. Let him get another spring under his belt. Hopefully he could be practicing in the spring, and the 2026 season you line up with Helms/Washington, you line up with Briggs Bartosh, you still have Samari Howard, and we'll see where the offense goes. Brady Anderson, Parker Poloski. There's a lot of who are the seniors on this offense? Noah Short and Will Jeffcoat. Is that it? I think so. Generali's a junior.
Junior, yeah.
He's only a junior?
Yeah, he's a junior. Yeah, so 4 to 5 are back on the offensive line. And you got most of your skilled players back. Oh, Hayden Reed too. So,
Hayden Reed, yeah, he's a firstie.
Hayden Reed, Noah Short, and Will Jeffcoat pretty much are guys who see, major action on the offense. So it's a young offense.
And if we can see, because the biggest question, I pointed at the camera when you mentioned Ethan Washington, because obviously he is potentially a really dynamic talent. But the other thing too is, while this season up to this point has had its peaks and valleys, you got to understand Cale Helms is going to be coming back next year with a year's worth of experience under his belt. And
Sure.
if we could see development in his play like we saw from Bryson Daly between his junior and senior years. Now, granted, of course, he was going from shotgun to under center, but if we could see more of that development where he begins to understand this offense a little bit better and makes a little bit better decisions. Oh, and by the way, the offensive line is a little bit better, and maybe the running back room is a little bit better. I mean, we could have next year could be a really great year. I mean, whether you want to call 2025 a rebuild or not, it was very clear from the start of the season it was going to be, to some degree, a regression to the mean. I'm looking at 2026, at least in terms of who's coming back on paper, and I'm thinking to myself, well, we certainly won't be regressing in any way next year. And whether that's Ethan Washington, whether that's Cale Helms, I think we could be looking at another really banner year next year for us.
A lot of questions on the defense. So, and also the offense, you got a lot of guys back, but we average 20 points a game. So we got to see some growth. And we have we're losing a lot of guys, losing both our inside linebackers, losing guys all over the place on defense.
The thing is, Jack Balsam back, Cody Harris-Miller back, Steve Nadozie, who saw some action as a safety, will be elevated to probably a starter. You're going to have guys similar to this year that might have seen some time on the field here and there, but like you said, Seth, those inside linebackers are going to be really tough to replace. We'll see where they go. We'll see. I think I mentioned Noah Nixon maybe moving from the outside edge maybe to the inside. We'll see what happens. Who knows? Seth, who will be Army's FCS opponent in 2026 to open the brand new Michie Stadium? Do you know that answer, Seth?
I do, but I can't say it. I'm sworn to secrecy. They should sign documents very soon. It's an FCS team. I'm allowed to say that, and it's somebody that Army, I believe, has never played before.
There you go.
So I'm a little bit, if it's true, if they're telling me the truth, I'm a little bit shocked by it, but I can't say any more than that.
We'll leave it at that. We'll cliffhang that. Let's talk about this real quick, and then maybe we can. Mike asking, next year might be the last time Army Navy standalone weekend as we know it. Try to make it if you can. There's talk about down. I guess they have 2 more years of this contract, and then they're searching for Army Navy homes for the next 5-year cycle. And with the college football playoff, maybe adding another round or more games. Is Army Navy going to be booted? I know that it seems like the ADs certainly want to keep it as a standalone, right, Seth? But can they? What do you think?
Well, I think that the government's going to, if Trump's still president, which he will be, he's going to make a big deal out of it being a standalone game. You got a lot of factors here. You got to remember the U.S. military is a $900 billion a year operation, and a lot of jobs, a lot of money being transferred around. So a lot of people want Army Navy to be by itself, and I think those people are in the involved with the NCAA. They're going to do something to make sure Army Navy stands out a little bit. They may be playing bowl games that night, or tournament games that night. They did yesterday at a game yesterday. Boise State and Washington, right? But I think that the consensus is that Army Navy must stand out. That could change over time. But let's hope it doesn't. It definitely is a special game. But to your point, they have 2 more years left on the contract, and there are other cities that seem to be very interested in getting a piece of the pie. The 5 cities that have it now. I know that Dallas wants it. People talk about Orlando. People even talk about Chicago. Don't say no, because there's a lot of money being thrown out there to go to Dallas, and the new Soldier Field, when that opens up, whenever that might be. They'd want to play there. Army Air Force used to play there back in the 60s and did okay in terms of attendance. And logistically, it's tough to get the Corps and the midshipmen. They take buses to the games. So Sal and I got stuck behind the Navy students and their 60 or 80 buses on the way home from Massachusetts 3 years ago. And boy, they were going pretty slow, and we couldn't get around them. They had cops there. We could not get around them. These kids have to go, 6-7 hour bus ride, or from Annapolis to nearby Boston. It's crazy, but don't be surprised if somebody else gets their hand in there. I would say Dallas is the favorite. Jerry Jones definitely wants that game.
Your thoughts, Cuthbert, on possibly the Army Navy game moving, or what happens?
I've been very clear about this on Twitter. I do not believe that the game should be played indoors. I do not believe the game should be played in warm weather. I think that the lion's share of games should be played in Philly and New York. If you want to branch out from that, Baltimore is okay. Boston is okay. We've never done Pittsburgh. I'd be okay with that. Chicago is a little bit of a stretch, but it's outside. It's cold weather. It checks a lot of the sort of cultural boxes, so to speak, for what I'm looking for. I don't think the game should be played south of Washington, D.C. I've spoken to a lot of people on social media about this, and there's a lot of people around the country who say, no, we want it to tour. We want to be able to see it. it's pricey enough to try and get in, let alone, tickets, parking, hotels, the whole thing. It's incredibly expensive. If it could at least be someplace closer by. And I understand that. And I do understand that. But the last thing I want is, honestly, not the last thing, but I just think it sort of takes something away when it's like, oh yeah, it's a beautiful 72 degrees here at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. It's like, guys, it's the Army-Navy game. What are we talking about? We need to be on grass. We need to have people in heavy winter coats. It's December. It's Army-Navy. What are we doing? You know what I mean?
I don't think any of the fields have real grass, but your point is good. They did go to the Rose Bowl in 1983. And as I recall, I remember covering the game for Gannett newspapers, the Corps going to, getting on planes and going out to the game. And they had like 25, I don't know how many jets they had, how many people on a jet, 200 times divided by 4,000 kids. So it's a lot of jets. And they all went out to the game, and it was a financial disaster, as I recall. Place Rose Bowl was not sold out. The tradition is not there. To your point, I agree with you. Cold weather game, second Saturday in December. It's a beautiful thing, and it really is a wonderful game. It's whoever wins or loses. I wish it was Army every year, but there's nothing like it in college sports. You can tell me about Michigan, Ohio State, and Auburn, Alabama. I get that, but this game has something way beyond just playing football. And love it.
Wanted to get to one more question, then we'll get out of here. William De Los Santos saying, do you think academies will get their fifth year eligibility and be December grads? I think fifth year is a topic for coaches conference after the season. Well, we know that there's been multiple fifth year guys for Army and Air Force. Navy doesn't do the fifth year, so maybe it should be straight. Everybody, all the academies should be doing the same thing, like the pros. Like NFL, now they are allowed 3 athletes across the academies to pursue pro sports. Supposedly it might be going to 5. Keep it uniform. Let everybody do this. If Army and Air Force are taking fifth years, Navy, I think there's a pride thing with that. They want their midshipmen to go through the 4 years and not get any special treatment, anybody to get any special treatment, I think, but we'll see. And then we have a follow-up for this. We'll call him a Sud dude here. I can't see USMA doing that. It's a 47-month machine. I can't see West Point giving longer time to football players just because they're football players. It happens all the time. There's fifth-year guys almost every year on Army's team. Whether they have an injury, whether they have something else going on, the Army's had multiple fifth-year guys play for their team. Connor Finucane last year, something to do with his military training got pushed back, so he got an extra year. If you like an Ethan Washington who's going away for a semester, and he's got to make up that academic work, so he'll be a December grad. They've had multiple December grads in the last 5 years, I would say.
Well, we should also state that non-athletes also sometimes graduate late. It's not just the athletes. Some of them graduate instead of May or June, they graduate in December. So it's not like it's just the football players getting that. Other kids, they have reasons they have to go home. So, God forbid somebody passes away, they get injured, they have to take a break for whatever reason. The academy wants to work with these kids to make sure they graduate, especially the good ones. And so they do spend an extra semester. I never heard of a year, but maybe a year at the academy. And I think Air Force does the same thing. I don't know if Navy does that or not, in terms of letting them graduate late. I don't know that.
Not to my knowledge. So, but I think it's an investment. The academy is invested in these cadets as student athletes. And so, they want to see them to the finish line. They want them to take that and if that 47-month journey takes a couple extra months because maybe a class here or a physical injury there or a training here, and then it happens. We don't want to go. I'm sorry, G Bank. We can't go. We don't want to bring up the.
Do we?
Do we have time for this topic?
Let's kick a hornet's nest at hour 13 in.
Do you want to touch on this, Cuthbert, or not? It's up to you. The floor.
Look, All I'll say is there's varied reporting as to who made the decision as to Notre Dame not participating in a bowl game. There is reporting that it was a team decision and a team meeting. There's reporting that it was the athletic director trying to make a power play, basically enforce the ACC's hand, and sort of exert some influence as as they view themselves a power broker. I don't know which it was. What I can say is if it was not the players, if it was not a team decision, if the athletic director unilaterally did that, that is an absolute Bush League move to have a bunch of 22, 23, 24-year-old men, young men who are playing a game they love, and they get told, oh, by the way, that last game you played, that is your last game. Your career is now over. That would be really too bad. I hate that they're taking their ball and going home, but you know what? That's more bowl game money for the rest of us. So pound sand.
Well, my concern is that Notre Dame opened up a box here that won't close. There's a lot of bowl games out there that are struggling. They're getting 6-6 teams, some cases 5-7 teams, and they're not making money. And we've lost a couple of them. I think it was in the LA Bowl. That was yesterday was the last LA Bowl. I think it's important to keep the bowl games around for the teams like an Army or a Navy that had a good season but didn't make the tournament. And only 12, maybe it'll be 16 teams make it down the road. What happens to the other 137? But I think Notre Dame, what they did, they did a team vote, they said. Don't know if that's true. And they decided not to go, and they all were supporting it. I think it's bad for college football, but I'm not shocked. Notre Dame, you knew this was going to happen one year. Notre Dame wasn't going to make the tournament when they felt they should, and they were going to cry. I didn't know it was going to happen this year. Should they be in there? Maybe over Alabama, certainly not over Miami. But Alabama beat Georgia. So anyway, I think it's bad for college football, and I think Notre Dame was selfish about it. But that's my take on it. Not a big Notre Dame fan.
Big Daddy says Service Academy football is the last remnant of what true D1 football was. Everything else is NFL minor leagues right now. And Mike comes back saying, Big Daddy, yes, what we watched yesterday was college football. Everything else is paraprofessional football that's associated with a college. I think
I have to say something about that. I'm sorry to cut you off. But, this year and next year, Villanova, William & Mary, and Richmond are leaving the conference they're in now. What is it, the Colonial Conference, CAA? Is that what it is, I think?
Maybe. I don't know.
It's one of the better, the FCS conferences, and they're going into the Patriot League. I think one went in this year and two are going next year. And the reason for that is that they don't want to spend the money necessary to compete at the higher level, even the FBS higher level. And Villanova beat Tarleton State yesterday to advance to the semis of the FCS championship. I don't know how much further they're going to get. They're a good team, but they were better. So you're seeing a change in college football. You have the haves and you have the have-nots. The teams that can afford to spend $25 million a year on a roster, plus give a coach $6, $7, $8 million, $10 million, and then the other schools, most of them, who cannot compete. Probably a good 60 or 70 of the 130 or so Division I schools just don't have the money to compete at that level. So we're definitely seeing a change in college football. It's not a good one either.
No, not at all. Really appreciate everybody joining us today. Man, the comments, probably record comments tonight. Probably had close to 100 comments tonight. Crazy interaction with the Army fans. Yeah, we were not happy about the 17-16 loss to Navy. Rival Navy yesterday, but we can get together and we can talk about it and we can go through some therapy, right? So we'll be back. Maybe we'll be back next Sunday with a quick preview of the bowl game, Fenway Bowl. Who knows? Maybe there'll be some news for Army too that we could talk about. But thank you everybody for joining us. Check out BlackKnightNation.com for Seth Mendelson's stories and my stories. Check out our social medias on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Cuthbert, where can they find you?
At Sidelines Army, all things Army sports all the time on Twitter. And then you'll see me popping up under my government name on Facebook every now and again.
There we go. All right, we're out, guys. Thanks for joining us. Great talk, and we'll see you guys soon.
Eat UConn.
Go Army.